Can you believe a book revealed 1400 years ago contained scientific facts that humanity only proved recently? Facts that required satellites, microscopes, submarines, billion-dollar equipment, and some of those facts, we still cannot verify them, because we don't have the technology yet. This book was revealed to one prophet, in a desert, with nothing, and it changed the entire world. Today we are only looking at one thing, the science inside it. What you're about to see will shock you. Let's start with embryology. In the 17th century, scientists thought the sperm contained a tiny, fully formed, miniature human being. It just grew bigger inside the womb. That was the best scientific theory they had. But here's what the Quran said 100 years ago. It said the human being is created from a minute quantity of mingled fluids. Then it becomes something which clings to the womb, like a leech. Then it becomes a chewed-like lump. Then bones are formed. Then the bones are clothed with flesh. Then a completely new creature emerges, stage by stage, in exact order. Now here's where it gets shocking. Professor Keith Moore, head of anatomy at the University of Toronto, one of the world's leading authorities in embryology, he literally wrote the textbook on it, the same textbook medical students around the world use to this day. When Arab students collected all the Quranic verses on embryology and brought them to him, he went through every single one. He said, most of what the Quran describes matches perfectly with what modern science has discovered. But one verse stopped him. The Quran says the human being is created from something which clings, like a leech. He said, I don't know if the embryo actually looks like a leech. So he went to his laboratory. He put the early stage embryo under a powerful microscope. Then he placed it next to a photograph of a real leech. He was astonished. The resemblance was striking. Then someone asked him, could Prophet Muhammad have used a microscope? He laughed. Then he remembered. The microscope wasn't invented until 1400 years after the Quran was revealed, and even the first microscope barely enlarged 10 times and the image wasn't even clear. Professor Keith Moore said, these stages of development have to be a divine revelation. But let's go back even further, to the very beginning of everything. Scientists today call it the Big Bang Theory. The idea that the entire universe, all of it, every galaxy, every star, every planet, was once one single compressed mass. Then it exploded and separated. This was only confirmed scientifically in the 20th century. But the Quran says in chapter 21, verse 30, do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together and we clove them asunder? Joined together, then separated, in one verse, 400 years ago, and it doesn't stop there. Scientists also discovered that before the universe formed, all celestial matter existed in a state of gas, a gaseous state. The Arabic word the Quran uses for this is dukhan, which means smoke. Scientists say smoke is actually more scientifically precise than just the word gas, because smoke describes both the gaseous state and the suspended particles within it. Stephen Hawking himself said the discovery of bridges of matter in space is the biggest discovery of this century, giving indisputable evidence of the Big Bang. The Quran described it 200 years ago. Now here's something that will make you question everything you were taught in school. For centuries, people believed the universe was static, fixed, not growing, not changing. It was only in the 20th century that Edwin Hubble discovered galaxies are moving away from each other. The universe is expanding. This was groundbreaking, revolutionary. It changed everything. But the Quran says in chapter 51, verse 47, it is we who have constructed the firmaments with power and skill, and it is we who make the vastness. The Arabic word used is muzuna, meaning expanding vastness, the expanding universe, mentioned 1400 years ago. Do you know about any other historical book having signs like this book? Let me know in the comments. Now let's talk about something even closer to home, the Earth you're standing on right now. In the 15th century, people were terrified to sail too far. They thought the Earth was flat. They thought they would fall off the edge. It was only in 1577 when Sir Francis Drake sailed around the Earth that people accepted it was spherical. But the Quran says in chapter 39, verse 5, Allah overlaps and coils the night unto the day and overlaps and coils the day unto the night. The Arabic word used is kawara. It means to coil. Like how you coil a turban around your head, wrapping one layer over another. This is only possible if the shape beneath it is spherical. On a flat surface, there is no coiling. There would just be a sudden change, and it goes further. Chapter 79, verse 30 says, and thereafter we have made the earth egg-shaped. The Arabic word is dahaha, coming from the root word duya, which specifically refers to the egg of an ostrich, not just a round ball. Scientists today tell us the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It is slightly flattened from the top and bulging at the center, geospherical. The egg of an ostrich has the exact same shape, slightly flattened at the top and bulging from the center, geospherical. The Quran described the exact shape of the earth 100 years ago. And then, there's the moon. For centuries, people assumed the moon produces its own light, just like the sun. It was only recently that we discovered the moon doesn't produce any light at all. It simply reflects the light of the sun. But the Quran always described the sun and moon with two completely different words. The sun is always called Siraj, a blazing lamp, Wahaj, a shining glory, Dia, its own light. The moon is always called Munir or Noor, borrowed light, reflected light. Never once does the Quran describe the moon with the same words as the sun, not a single time. Now let's go underground. Geologists today tell us the Earth's outer crust is extremely thin, less than 1% of the Earth's total radius, and because it is so thin there are extremely high possibilities of it shaking, of earthquakes, of instability, but mountains go deep into the earth, far deeper than what you see above the surface. Like a peg hammered into the ground, they stabilize the crust. They prevent it from shaking. The Quran says in chapter 78, verses 6 and 7, "We have made the earth as an expanse and the mountains as stakes," the same word geologists use today. The book titled The Earth, one of the most famous geology textbooks used by universities worldwide, written by Frank Press, it illustrates the mountain exactly as a wedge-shaped peg, and it says, the function of the mountain is to stabilize the Earth's crust. The Quran gave the function of mountains 1400 years ago. Now go to the ocean, not the surface. Go deep, 200 meters below the surface. Complete darkness begins. You cannot see your own hand. Even if you bleed, you cannot see the red color of your own blood because the red wavelength of light is absorbed long before you reach that depth. Orange is absorbed at 50 meters, yellow at 100, green at 200, blue beyond that, violet even deeper. To survive in those depths today, submarines carry their own lights. Because without them, you are completely blind. We only discovered this darkness with modern instruments and submarines. A human being cannot go below 20 to 30 meters unaided. Beyond 200 meters, they die. But the Quran says in chapter 24, verse 40, "The state of the unbeliever is like the depth of darkness in a vast deep ocean, overwhelmed with waves, topped with dark clouds." The depths of darkness, one layered over the other. When a man stretches out his hand, he can hardly see it. Professor Dergaro, an expert in marine geology, when he read this verse, he said, "This verse is not speaking about a normal sea, it is speaking about a deep sea." He explained the two layers of darkness, the internal waves that divide the deep and superficial layers, the cloud barriers above. Every single detail in that one verse matches what we know today. He said, "It is impossible for any human being to have mentioned this verse 100 years ago." Now let's talk about something that happens on your skin every single day without you knowing. When you burn yourself, doctors test how deep the burn is by pressing a pin into the burned area. If you feel pain, it is a superficial burn. The pain receptors in your skin are intact. If you feel nothing, it is a deep burn. The pain receptors have been destroyed. We only discovered skin pain receptors recently. Before that, scientists thought only the brain was responsible for feeling pain. But the Quran says in chapter 4, verse 56, "As to those who reject our signs, we shall cast them into hellfire. And as often as their skins are roasted, we shall give them fresh skins so that they shall feel the pain." Fresh skins, so they feel the pain. Not fresh bones, not a new body, fresh skins. Professor Tagatat Tegatatson, head of the Department of Anatomy at Shanghai University in Thailand, spent years researching pain receptors. When he was given the translation of this verse, he said, "It is impossible that the Quran can mention this. We discovered it recently. How is it possible?" He verified the Holy Quran. He checked, he confirmed, and at the 8th Medical Saudi Conference in Riyadh, he stood up and said, "There is no God but Allah and Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God." Here is something even more personal. Your fingerprint. In 1880, Sir Francis Gould discovered that no two fingerprints of any two individuals are equal, even in a million people. That is why today the police, the FIA, the CIA all use fingerprinting to identify individuals. It is considered the most precise form of identification science has ever found. But the Quran says in chapter 75, verses 3 and 4, the unbelievers asked, "How will Allah be able to reassemble our bones after we are buried and our bones have disintegrated?" Allah answers, "We can not only reassemble your bones, we can even reconstruct in perfect order the very fingertips." The fingertips. Out of the entire human body, out of every bone, every organ, every tissue. The Quran specifically mentions the fingertips as the ultimate proof of Allah's ability to recreate. 200 years before the world even knew that fingertips were unique. Now let's talk about water. simple water. In the deserts of Arabia 1400 years ago, water was the most scarce and precious thing in existence. People were dying for lack of it. And the Quran says in chapter 21, verse 30, "We have created every living thing from water. Will you not then believe? Every living thing from water." Who would have believed this in a desert? Water was rare, water was precious. Who would have thought to say everything comes from water? Today we know the basic substance of the living cell, cytoplasm, is 80% water. Every living creature contains 50 to 70% water. Without water, no living creature can survive. Every living thing from water. 400 years ago. And let's talk about bees. The Quran says in chapter 16 verses 68 and 69, Allah has taught the bee to build its cells in hills, in trees and in human habitations, to eat of what the earth produces, and to find the spacious paths of its Lord. And from the belly of the bee comes a drink of varying colors in which there is healing for mankind. Honey as medicine. Most people today know honey has antiseptic properties. It is rich in vitamin K and fructose. Russian soldiers used to cover their wounds with honey to prevent the evaporation of moisture and minimize scar tissue. But here's something most people don't know about this verse. The Arabic word used for the bee in this verse is a female gender word. Fasluki, the female bee. Previously, the entire world thought the worker bee was male. Shakespeare in his play Henry IV wrote about the soldier bee, the male bee. People assumed the working bee was male for centuries. Today we know the worker bee is always female. And they don't report to a king. They report to a queen. The Quran mentioned the gender of the worker bee 400 years ago. Now let's talk about two seas that meet but never mix. At the southern tip of South Africa, in Cape Town, the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean meet. You can physically see the line where they meet. But they do not mix. The salt water remains salt. The sweet water remains sweet. The same happens where the Nile flows into the Mediterranean. The same happens with the Gulf Stream. Two completely different bodies of water, flowing alongside each other for thousands of miles, maintaining completely distinct characteristics. Scientists today know there is an invisible barrier between them, a transitional homogenizing space, a barrier that prevents the characteristics of each water from merging. But the Quran says in chapter 25, verse 53, "It is Allah who has let free two bodies of flowing water, one sweet and one salt and bitter, and between them there is a barzakh, a barrier which is forbidden to be crossed." This phenomenon was confirmed by Professor Hay, one of the leading marine scientists of the USA. The Quran mentioned it 1400 years ago. The Quran itself gives you a challenge in chapter 4, verse 82. Do you not consider the Quran with Quran? Had it been from anyone besides Allah, there would have been many contradictions. Find one, just one. That challenge has stood for 400 years, and it still stands today. Subscribe and comment part 2 for getting the part 2 of this series.